Hi, and thanks for joining us again on this week's edition of Work Comp Matters. This week, me, Robert, Ted, Mike talk about Nancy Pelosi becoming Speaker of the House, in addition to Donald Trump's wall and immigration. Of course, there is the Romaine Lettuce scare. Los Angeles nurses are in the news, and my favorite, NASA's Rover Insight landed on Mars. All this plus news of the week on this edition of WorkCom Matters. And now, thanks for listening. Here's the show. From the round table at Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of WorkCom Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, some news, and hopefully some answers about WorkCom Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your WorkCom Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in. The questions, the comments, and or the concerns. Phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can send a fax, 818-475-1437. You can send me an email, wcexaminer@aol.com. With me in studio, Dr. Michael Zyma, Mr. Ted Durden, Attorney Robert Ozeron, Scott Walton of Uncle Studios, back in Munich, Germany, John Scalia, and back at WorkComp Central are all the good people back at WorkComp Central. Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining me for another edition of WorkComp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the number one computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the damn Kuiper Belt, and even on Mars, you give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. If you want those hard-to-get, sold-out, even front-row concert, sports, theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. Here's a little something now from ABC Rugs. ABC Rugs has been in the business of manufacturing and direct importation and exportation of Persian and Oriental rugs for more than 39 years. ABC Rugs is a direct importer and wholesaler of antique, Moroccan, Oriental, and Persian rugs. Established in 1978, ABC Rugs is definitely old school. 323-897-5444. That's ABC Rugs. 323-897-5444. And there goes ABC Rugs. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to WorkComp Matters. News stories tonight. Insight, the NASA lander, lands on Mars. Nancy Pelosi nominated as Speaker of the House. FEMA is in the news regarding helping out all of the people that were damaged by fires. General Motors cuts 14,000 jobs and a couple of plants. Los Angeles County reaches labor pact with the county nurses. And genetically edited babies are also in the news. This plus, boy, we got a whole slew of news stories. And before we get to them and the guys, I wanted to say one thing. You know, last week, and Mike and Ted were not here, we talked about how WorkComp Central had decided not to renew the contract. You know, about 2 years ago, I made a handshake agreement with WorkComp Central to do this podcast, and we have been doing it for almost 2 years now. We've got about 95 plus shows in the tank. And apparently Work Comp Central is going through some restructuring, which I firmly believe every business should go through restructuring at a minimum of once a year. But apparently there was talk that they were going to cut our budget. Well, no sooner do I announce that they had decided to cancel the contract than I get a call from a representative of Work Comp Central who says, Steve, you know what? This might not be a final thing. Let's get together and talk. Well, actually, she said this might not be a final thing, and I said, great, let's get together and talk. So what is this? And again, I'm not an employee of Work Comp Central. I am truly an independent contractor. They can cancel my ass at any time, and apparently in some way, fashion, or form they did, but now they're reconsidering it.
You got resurrected.
I got resurrected, baby.
Faster than Roseanne.
There you go. And I said, I live in Woodland Hills and I work in Van Nuys. Meet with me for an hour, my treat, and I will take care of you. So I'm meeting her for lunch. And I just want to say, in the simplest form, I think Work Comp Central is better with Work Comp Matters than without Work Comp Matters. And I'm confident that I'm going to be able to reach some type of financial agreement which they're going to be happy with. And so, you know what? We may be around for another year. That's all I have to say about that. And, of course, I will report back to you
just make them an offer they can't refuse. You know what I mean?
I'm going to make an offer they can't refuse. It depends
where this lunch occurs. What are you going to get? Some Mexican at Los Tres Hermanos?
I told her I would take her wherever she wanted to go.
You should say where.
You should have your deal closed in place.
And she said, Steve, you know what? I don't know the area because she's coming from Sacramento. You pick. So I picked it. And I will report back to you guys next week.
Okay, sounds good.
There you go. Our first news story of the night, despite 32 no votes from insurgent lawmakers who want changes to Democratic leadership, Nancy Pelosi has been officially nominated as the new Speaker of the House as the new Speaker of the House of Representatives. Pelosi was running uncontested and enjoys widespread support within the liberal heavy caucus she leaded since 2003. Still, Pelosi faces a tougher test the first week of January when the full House meets to choose the Speaker in public, requiring a majority of the entire voting chamber. You know, I want to throw it out to the table. As I said last week to Robert, there is no way Pelosi is not going to be Speaker of the House. This is a classic example of follow the money. Nancy Pelosi presumably raises $100 million a year for her Democrats that she wants to donate to their reelection campaign.
That's real money.
It's not only real money. We've always said on Work Comp Matters, follow the money. So what I want to know is, what is her first job? To try and get Trump out of office?
I don't think so. I don't. No. You know, I think that's going to be a non-starter. It really is. I think the Democrats have spent enough time trying to vilify this man, trying to bring this man down. He's almost like when Bill Clinton was in the White House, the Republicans tried as much as they could to get rid of him. He was Teflon Bill. It's the same thing with Trump.
I mean, come on, Bill Clinton.
That was like 2 or 3 years.
You can't do what Bill Clinton did in office nowadays and make it through your whole term. I cannot.
Oh, I think Trump's doing it now. He's just doing it with a hell of a lot more secrecy.
No way. You're getting a BJ in the office from like a 22-year-old girl. Not happening. Okay.
Well, sure it is.
I agree with RO.
There is no way in today's climate you could have made that. So, she was like 22, right? Lewinsky at the time?
But
correct.
Oh my gosh.
The issue wasn't that she was getting a BJ. It was that supposedly Clinton was on a secure telephone call talking to someone else.
There's a lot of issues, not just the phone call that
correct.
he made
there
while
were
he's getting this
indiscretions.
Oh my gosh. But so we can't compare Clinton to Trump by any means.
But again,
worlds
I'm not talking about as far as what each one was individually engaged in. What I'm talking about specifically is, regardless of what Bill Clinton was doing, the Republicans tried to get him out.
That's true.
And they couldn't. Regardless to how Trump behaves, as wild and crazy as the comments he may make, as much as unfactual as they may be, he's not going anywhere.
Oh, let's be honest. If Trump nowadays got a blowjob in the office from a 22-year-old intern, Republicans would immediately turn their back on him.
Robert, I think the point that Ted is trying to make is that the Democrats have been trying to get Trump out of office since day one.
That's definitely true.
The Clinton thing didn't really become light or everybody know about it until his second term.
Yeah, that's very true. And I think it began with Whitewater. It started with Whitewater.
Yes, well, the investigation began with Whitewater.
We should all be careful before we get on Hillary Clinton's hit list here, okay?
Hey, you know what I want to know about Pelosi? I want to know if she's a deal maker.
No, don't even. They don't know who I am. My name is...
She's a deal what?
I want to know if she's a deal maker. If she's a deal maker, I can deal with it.
Who, Pelosi?
Yeah.
So I
believe she
I would think she'd have to be.
I think she's going to get actually votes from the majority, and many Republican votes are going to be there for her because she is awful. And Republicans love that she is going to be the face of the Democrats.
Why is she awful?
Well, she doesn't represent any change, right? There's nothing fresh about Nancy Pelosi. She's been around. We know her radical leftist policy.
LGBT, that's fresh. Me Too movement, that's fresh.
There's fresh stuff here.
Nancy Pelosi is not a fresh candidate.
She represents San Francisco, the most liberal part of the country, which, by the way, of course, is now the dirtiest part of the country with feces and needles. But that's a whole other point.
But I think
the majority
she represents
of Americans, everything fresh.
No, I think the majority of Americans have already rejected that. That was kind of what the Trump versus Clinton campaign was all about. So
that's possible.
So I think this has already been done. I don't know why Democrats would try to do version 2.0 as if Pelosi is a better...
Because of $100 million
Who should I think would be a good candidate for the Democrats?
Yeah.
What about that young Kennedy guy? I don't know too much about him.
Talking about Beto O'Rourke?
No. I think there's an actual Kennedy, right, out there in Boston or something like that.
No, it's another Kennedy, for crying out loud.
Well, I don't know.
Wait, Scott said it. What?
Joe Kennedy.
Yeah, it's Joe Kennedy, right? Not to say that I believe in anything they stand for, or a lot of their positions, that is. But at least he's got a good name, and it's
Who's
kind of
his grandfather or grandmother? Where's the Kennedy there?
Where's the Kennedy? Oh, that I don't know.
Okay,
but he's related.
Listen to Robert. I don't know anything about his positions, but at least he has a good name.
Yeah,
my boy. How did I raise you to be like that?
But put it this way, Pelosi's over. We all know Pelosi. That everyone knows who she is.
She's a total liberal Democrat, but she raises $100 million a year for other Democrats to get reelected.
I just don't see how Democrats can turn the national tide by giving somebody that we've already known. I don't see how you can turn the favor. It's kind of like you're in a basketball game and you pull someone off the bench, but they've played already and you've already, they're -6. So it's not going to work.
Yeah, but you have to understand, in the Democrats' eyes, especially in the House, she's like their Michael Jordan. That she's their go-to chick. That's who she is. That's what she represents.
That's when they were. But that's when they were a loud minority. When they actually need to get stuff done, like they're going to be the majority in the House, right? When they're going to need to actually get things done, she's going to need to be eloquent.
A deal maker, that's what I'm saying.
Eloquent, smart. She has to see things from all sides. She can't be such a biased, agenda-driven person, and it's going to be very difficult for her to do that.
I can't wait for President Donald Trump's
Correct.
national
the
State of the Union address, where he's going to have Pence and Pelosi behind him. What a sight!
What if they start making out?
Wow. Well, Pence is usually not alone in a room with a woman that's not his wife.
He's never
correct?
alone with a woman.
No.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Not alone with a woman that's not his wife. I think that's not a bad idea.
Is he just really careful? Or?
Well, perhaps trying to keep himself protected from an accusation.
So they don't do that.
Well,
he's what?
Evangelical. So they don't
is that where that's coming from?
But the truth is, if a man's alone in a room with a woman, whoever says anything when they exit that room could be technically telling the truth.
Just like Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. Well, that you can't even place him in the room, and that's bad enough, So you can imagine if you could actually put the two people in the room at the same time, then it gets really dicey.
Again, I'm going to be interested to see how she makes deals.
That's what I'm concerned about, is because Americans don't want to see just no and a roadblock. They don't want to see that. They want to see work done.
I think she's going to get elected, but I don't think she's going to get 100% of the vote. I don't believe that she's going to get.
Kamala Harris's vote.
She's unopposed, and she's not going to get 32 votes. But as the question was just asked, what do Americans want? I know what Americans want. As many as two, or at least West Coast Americans, as many as 2,000 FEMA trailers could be headed to Northern California to provide temporary housing for campfire evacuees, the government said today. But rolling out the FEMA trailers, which have become a sometimes controversial symbol of disaster recovery in America, could take a while. Stung by health problems that surfaced when FEMA brought in tens of thousands of defective trailers to the Gulf Coast after Hurricane Katrina, the agency has cut back the use of trailers in recent years. Who wants the next news story?
I do. General Motors Board of Directors approved a massive cost-cutting plan that includes closing 2 assembly plants in the U.S., 1 in Canada, and 2 propulsion plants by the end of the year. Combined with the white-collar cuts, about 14,000 hourly and salary jobs will be eliminated. You know, guys, is this a good thing? Is this just
Donald Trump is
government?
pissed. Donald Trump is pissed. He doesn't want 14,000 people laid off.
But isn't leaner and meaner better?
It is, and Trump is angry because, you know, he's trying to portray himself as a job czar, and he's created all these jobs and so forth and so on. So this is anathema. This is contrary to what he was talking about. But what I see GM doing is the same thing that Chrysler and Ford went through. I mean, the cars just aren't selling the way that they used to be.
Redo your line, right?
And that's what they're doing.
As a business owner, sorry for interrupting, you constantly have to take a look at your expenses and your profits and constantly find ways that you can reasonably cut. Go ahead, Ted.
Right, and here's a surprising thing that GM noticed as far as their automobile lines were concerned. It's the sedans that aren't selling that great. It's actually the
big.
Yeah, it's actually the SUVs or the mid-sized SUVs that are selling better than the sedans are. And unfortunately,
gas prices are lower now.
Or they're making up for some small appendages. Please continue.
Well, and you look at the fact that they haven't been able to keep up with the cutting edge electric car companies, you know, like Tesla or Toyota.
That's what they're really going for here,
right.
I believe.
Musk just came out, I think, today or whatever,
Musk
and
is a
said
lunatic.
they were weeks from going under. They were weeks from being dissolved.
Tesla at one point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Really?
it's all part of his bio.
Came out
If you
today
watch
and said that.
Didn't he say it was that way now?
It had been that way for some time, but he had lived like hand to mouth a lot of times as a billionaire. Right? It's crazy stuff. He's a very interesting character.
His overhead was extraordinary.
Yeah, where he would live off the cash in his pocket, but billions of dollars are invested in this car company, as if your dinner is really going to make a difference at that point. Just treat yourself. Go out for dinner.
And it's always
whatever.
and it's always funny to me. Just as a quick aside. Now, if this is a poverty-stricken person, we call him crazy. Because he's got money, he's eccentric.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he is remarkably eccentric, I
He's
believe.
eccentric.
It just doesn't seem reasonable, right? That you're living hand to mouth. You need to crash at your friend's couch. Just pull $1 million aside for right. You could. That's not too much to ask. It's not
Mr.
gonna
Musk, if you're listening, you can crash on my couch anytime you want.
Be careful, Steve. Eccentric guy. He might be there in the morning. Okay, so he might be one of those 80 listeners we have weekly.
Is that a dig?
How about another news story? Come on, somebody.
Okay,
grab the
sure.
ball and run with it.
All right. I'll take it. Los Angeles County officials and the labor union representing the county's nurses reached an 11th hour deal Monday night to avert a strike that was set to begin Tuesday morning. More than 7,000 nurses, including those who worked in emergency rooms, operating rooms, and intensive care units, had planned to begin a 4-day strike Tuesday morning.
They say that a legal secretary makes or breaks an attorney's law practice. Well, I guarantee you, nurses can make or break a doctor's practice.
Oh, absolutely.
Robert, what do you think?
Totally agree. Nurses are usually the people who spend the most time with the patient.
No, they're the backbone. Absolutely. Bar none. They're the backbone.
I didn't realize that you can receive a doctorate in nursing. I learned that recently.
Yeah.
Those that do probably teach.
Yeah, but correct. It's just very interesting. You could be a doctor of nursing.
Yeah.
I got the next one. A Chinese researcher who claims to have helped make the world's first genetically edited babies says a second pregnancy may be underway. The researcher, He Jiaku of Shenzhen,
Excellent.
thank you, revealed the possible pregnancy Wednesday while making his first public comments about his controversial work at the International Conference in Hong Kong.
Wow, messing with human DNA.
This is freakazoid stuff to me, guys. It creeps me out.
Using AIDS as an excuse, and he's possibly has a second baby with altered DNA. What do you guys think? I mean, are we looking at genetically altered people now?
I was waiting for a long time for the superhero universe to become real. Right? We're watching on TV all the time as if it is real, and now here we go. We're starting to alter each other.
Michael B. Jordan in Creed 2. I can see Creed 3 genetically altered, right?
For sure. Well, you know what?
But this is something. This isn't surprising in the sense that genetically modified babies, and there was a phrase that was coined about 5 years ago, and the name of it escapes me now. But this has been talked about for decades.
Designer babies, right?
Designer babies, that's what it was called. Thank you. Designer babies, that's what it was called. Having genetically modified children, just perfectly.
Go to the store and say, I'd like to order 2 George Clooney's or what?
Yeah, something like that.
What about the ethical considerations? Because I know I'm old-fashioned, but this stuff seems creepazoid to me. And how are they going to have ethical practices enforced on such a practice, especially within China?
Well,
okay, when you say ethical, in what sense?
Well, ethics, of course, is a replacement for morals. You have to recall, ethics is a code of practice for a profession or
a code of practice, Ted.
Correct. So,
because I feel it can be abused.
I had to go back to superheroes, but
sure.
With great power comes great responsibility. That comes from Spider-Man,
right?
And this is really the stuff that we're talking about. If you can alter DNA, you have a responsibility to do so in a manner that is both moral. And hopefully ethical within the guidelines for whatever practice you're in. I don't know that industry.
Well, see, here's a scary part for me that I see, and I'm looking at it purely from a utopian perspective, because if but it's scary in this sense, because if you have genetically modified children that are perfect in every sense of the word, then you look at them becoming the leaders of this world, of this country.
It's basically racism, because they're better than they're a different race.
Right, and so then you have an even worse caste system at that point.
Oh yeah,
you really and truly do.
Where
you have those who are less educated, who are less skillful, who are relegated to menial jobs, menial pay, cave dwellers, if you will. And that's the fear that I see in the long term is just that.
Zyma could use some company as a cave dweller, right, Mike?
Well, the cave dwelling refers
Mike
to
is our original cave dweller.
My method of work. I like to go into a cave.
He's not genetically altered. At least I'm not aware that he's. Yeah, that's right.
But Ted, there is a very scary future like that, right? Because it's basically racism 2.0.
It's
right?
geneticism is
it
what
is.
it is.
Yeah, well,
and
genetics is
I'm
racism.
looking at it from totally different angle than you guys. I'm looking at it becoming militaristic.
That's probably the first one.
I'm looking at a whole slew of Arnold.
Weaponized.
I'm looking at a whole slew of Arnold Schwarzeneggers in the Marines and being in the front line of defense or offense or SWAT or whatever.
I'll take some of those for the U.S.
But that's what I'm saying. That seems like a good thing.
When you say that, it makes me think of there was a movie that came out that Kurt Russell starred in. It was called Soldier.
Universal Soldier. I got all the references for you here.
I appreciate that. And he was just a regular guy, regular normal human military trained, and he went up against these genetically modified soldiers that were built to ignore pain. And just take whatever come what may.
So who prevailed?
Kurt Russell did in the end.
So the question is always cloning for military purposes versus, let's say, robotics. Guys, we're talking Star Wars now, right? That's exactly Star Wars.
I'll take them for the U.S.
We're talking about
Marine
the plot of Star Wars now.
First.
Well, yeah, but that's the point, is that if you can really do this, it's really a race to the finish. It becomes an arms race, right? Who has a clone army?
It always is militarily.
Well, but then again, like you said,
dangerous future for
and
humans.
It's kind of like I'm going to touch on what Mike said a moment ago as far as the ethics of it. Didn't you get into? And I remember actually my son had to write a paper on this last year when he was in college. When you're talking about cloning, then we're talking about disposable human life, because if you can constantly clone a human, it has no value. It's disposable. You just get rid of it.
Makes you wonder if a clone would have a soul, right?
Yes.
All good points on Work Comp Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system in the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out, even front row, concert, sports, theater tickets, give my buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. And, of course, we're also brought to you by ABC Rugs. Now it's time for a regular contributor to the show, 45-year workers' compensation attorney in California, but now he's hanging out in Munich, Germany, and actually his book is coming out in a month. Yeah. Without further ado, attorney John Scalia.
Hi. This is John with the Work Comp International Report from Munich. I understand that frequently, because I criticize what goes on in the United States, my comments come across sometimes as strident or militant or even harsh. There's a reason for that. Reminds me of back when I was in high school. Well, actually, the conversation with my mom occurred several years later. I was the star debater in the best prep school in San Francisco. And the debate coach, a Jesuit priest, was a frequent dinner guest at our house. He was virtually quasi-family member. Long after I was out of high school, I once talked to my mom and I said, he was harder on me than on anybody else in the speech club. And she seemed surprised. She was shocked because we got along well, and certainly at dinner it was very social and convivial. And I said, Mom, it didn't bother me. I said, I understood why it was. First, he thought I was the best debater he had. And secondly, he cared about me. So he was going to be tougher on me than he was going to be on anybody else. And it's the same way with me in the United States. It's the same way with me in America. So when I come across as harsh or strident, that's the reason why. It's been a few days since I went to a Thanksgiving dinner here in Munich, but today was a day in which I especially took pride in being American. The first thing that happened was I went to the Apple store. Yeah, we have an Apple store here in Munich. Actually, we have two of them. We have a pretty large one not too far from me, and the main store downtown, which is where I went. The reason I went is that I had finished writing my autobiography, and I discussed with my son the prospect of doing an audio version of it. And he said, yeah, Dad, but you need to upgrade your equipment. I said, oh, because that, of course, meant I was going to have to spend money. So he said, yeah, you should upgrade from your iPad to a better Apple computer and get a better microphone. So listeners, next week you may hear a better broadcast, more quality broadcast, because hopefully I'll have the equipment operating by then. But that's what motivated it. There was no question that I was going to go to the Apple store. I've had great service at the Apple store. Every time I've gone in there, I've used both stores, the one closest to me and the big one downtown, and the service has been outstanding each time I've gone there. And I've been very happy with my iPad. As I said, I just finished writing my entire book, which probably will come out early next month, which is not too far away, as an ebook. Free plug. It's called An LA Lawyer in Munich, My Funny Life. And I think it's pretty funny. But anyway, so that's the first thing. Then I was home later on today and I was watching BBC News, and they were live from Pasadena. Well, technically they may have been live from La Cañada, but they said Pasadena, so I'm not going to quibble. They were in the JPL control room as the NASA probe landed on Mars. Now, it's pretty obvious that that's a pretty neat accomplishment. That's hard to do. Mars is a long way away, and getting a probe there and landing it softly so that it's intact on the surface is extremely difficult. How difficult? Well, only 40% of the probes that have tried to land on Mars have succeeded. And a number of countries have tried, but all those 40% belong to NASA. That's right. Every single successful landing on Mars that has occurred was NASA. There was a huge American flag in the background, and there was plenty of celebration when the probe landed and sent back what it was programmed to send back that said, "Hi, I got here, and here's the first picture." It was a very simple picture because it's not in full operation yet, but obviously there was lots of jubilation. And that's America at its best. That's America using its technology for peaceful scientific research and doing it in a way that nobody else in the world has been able to achieve. It was also done with international cooperation. A number of the instruments on the probe are the result of cooperation with European scientists, probably the European Space Agency. In fact, the robotic arm, which is essential to its mission to help drill 15 feet into the Martian surface, beneath the Martian surface, is a European instrument. So it was great to see it, and it was great to show the peaceful use of science. And the nice thing is we're going to learn a lot about Mars, and we're going to learn a lot about the universe. In other words, we're going to have a lot of scientific information, and hopefully we will eventually have governments that use that scientific information to the betterment of mankind and believe in the scientific information that is accumulated. So it was a good day to be a Yank today in Munich. And that's the view from Munich.
And John, as always, thanks again for your valuable contributions. We're going to be back on Work Comp Matters talking about, let's see here. We have chaos at the border. Of course, that's the United States-Mexican border. Impact of opioid addiction in the workplace. I believe it's pronounced Insys Therapeutics guilty plea. Alcohol use disorder. Methamphetamines are in the news. Tainted lettuce from California, and more stories on Work Comp Matters. We'll be back after this musical break.
How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? Now that you know who you are, what do you want to be? And have you traveled very far, far as the eye can see? Baby, you're a rich man. Baby, you're a rich man too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag beside a zoo. What a thing to do. How does it feel to be one of the beautiful people? How often have you been there? Often enough to know. What did you see when you were there? Nothing that doesn't show. Baby, you're a rich man. Too. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo. What a thing to do.
And thank you very much. We're back on Work Comp Matters. Over this weekend, chaos erupted at the San Ysidro border crossing as United States agents fired tear gas at Central American migrants trying to cross into the country from Tijuana. You know, what I'm hearing they're doing now is you got these group of tens or hundreds of people. They are literally pushing the women and children to the front And then, of course, they have to take the brunt.
That's what the Border
of
Patrol guys said.
That's what the Border Patrol guys said. Donald Trump, there were reports of tear gas being used, which I believe. Donald Trump said, nope, there's no tear gas. And, of course, we get video that plainly shows there's tear gas.
There's tear gas.
So,
they've taken their cue from the Iraqians by using the women and children.
This is an old tactic.
Yeah,
this is nothing
it's
new.
Terrorist tactic.
It's nothing new.
It's a terrorist tactic. It's awful.
No,
it's nothing short of child abuse by these parents, and hopefully our military
and
are
women
accustomed.
abuse,
Yeah, hopefully they can show
it's not
restraint.
the military.
In the right
It's
Border Patrol.
Border Patrol. Yeah.
What's our military's on the border? They're supporting them as well. They're putting up Constantino wire where the Border Patrol believes that there are soft spots.
Apparently, it's being breached.
I don't think the military has engaged them per se.
No. I think they've only offered
tear gas.
Correct. I think it's the Border Patrol that's fired off the tear gas, and the military is simply there as
backup
support and physical. How should I say this? Goods and services.
Do you believe that we have spies or confidants that are secretly in the groups of people trying to come to the border so we can determine, whether or not they're with gangs or illegals or truly
intelligence.
Intelligence. Thank you.
You would hope so that we would have a forward-thinking CIA.
Yeah.
But
you would hope.
Who knows, right? Well, hopefully we have our eyes and ears there. But I got to be honest, guys. Looking on the TV, there doesn't seem to be that many people. They seem to have dispersed a bit. Have you noticed that?
There have been some that have left.
I thought it was growing.
They say others have
Not
appeared,
now.
but or others are on the way. This also seems to be rather orchestrated, right? And we're always wondering who financed this.
Of course it's rather orchestrated, absolutely.
But who would finance this trip and get this all going like this?
Who do you think?
What are you saying? What are the two of you
I'm
saying?
wondering.
Come on.
Let's just throw it out loud. Give me some conspiracy theories before I throw mine out there,
guys,
you think this was done by
Soros?
people? Oh, in other words, you think it was...
I don't know.
I'm asking.
I don't
Hold on,
necessarily
stop.
know if
Stop,
that's true.
stop.
Everybody says George Soros. I have no idea if that's,
You think it was orchestrated by people in the United States?
I think more likely than not, yes.
I don't think so. No.
Of course, everything is
What's
orchestrated
so
by the United
ridiculous
States.
about that idea, Steve?
It's not that it's ridiculous. I
They cut
don't
through
like
Mexico
to
like a
think
hot
that.
knife through butter. Am I right? So
On foot.
What's
Well,
the advantage?
they caught
What's the
rides.
advantage of a George Soros or someone in the United States?
Chaos at the border to embarrass Trump. It's simple.
That's a direct way. For
Okay.
sure it works. Yeah, that's a direct
This
way.
embarrasses Donald
But I also
Trump.
think
Okay.
that it could take attention off of other matters. For example, we
That's
were talking
true.
about election fraud by Democrats in Florida, and then what do you know? There's a caravan. Everybody look at the border. Don't look over here at our own election. Look at the border.
The election
there's a
fraud
maestro.
investigation is still going on after a year. It's a bunch of crap as far as I'm concerned.
No, I'm not talking about Russia. I'm talking about in Florida recently,
Oh.
the governor's election, right? Where they're finding votes in somebody's couch, or
There's
basically
something
that's
in California,
There's
too.
fraud
No,
in
no,
every election.
no,
It's just
no,
a question
no.
of how much, right, guys?
My understanding about what was
could be
going
a distraction. Is all I'm saying.
No, my
with this
understanding
border
about
thing.
what's going on in that election, it was just a lot of the early vote, but the absentee ballots that had not been counted. That's my understanding.
But there's no chain of custody for those ballots. My understanding is correct that they just appeared miraculously out of nowhere on a truck. And
But that happens all the time, Robert.
that doesn't concern anybody. That's concerning. No matter if it's Republican votes or Democrat votes coming on that truck.
My point is this. You just can't point to that one election. You have to look at them all. And everybody, the Republicans and the Democrats, have been talking about there needs to be voting reform for decades.
Across the board.
And it just hasn't been done from the machine to the absentee ballots. It just hasn't happened.
And the districting, right? There's a lot of apparently racist Republican gerrymandering down in the South. My understanding
That's
is
been struck down.
But that
recently.
happens all the time.
Well,
you
there
know.
should be some sort of reasonable, solution to this. I thought about or I mentioned before that you can log onto your phone and your bank using
That'll
your
never
thumbprint.
happen.
I just
That'll
believe
never
one
happen.
person, one vote. You can easily authenticate them via thumbprint, some sort of, facial
And what if you need to do a
recognition.
recount? What are you going to recount? Thumbprints?
I'm sorry. There's such accuracy. You don't need a recount. God forbid. Right? It's a computer. You can't get it wrong. That's either your thumbprint.
Computers don't make mistakes.
There could be some sort of virus or a hacking. Okay.
Garbage in, garbage out.
But I'm talking about if you have. Come on. How many? You guys ever had your banking hacked from your phone? Never.
I was just
okay?
going to say, did you hear about the bank recently that handed out $100 bills when they were supposed to be 10s?
Yes.
Now, of course, that was human error
Right.
because a human loaded up the $10 slot with $100 bills.
Why can't that ever happen to me?
Right.
And the bank is not going to request the money back. So,
What?
Yeah, they're saying keep it. It's okay.
Machines don't make mistakes, okay? It's the human who programs the machine that makes a mistake. So
Well,
if
in
we
your
can
voting
figure it
example, I mean, there could be room for human error there, couldn't there? You're saying it's infallible.
I'm sure.
but
No, I'm
there's
not saying it's
humanoids.
infallible from the start, but I think it's a great beginning.
I
and then we
agree
can
with
figure
Robert.
It out.
I love hanging chads. I always have. And,
It's a bit ridiculous, right? And it's from both sides. I just think there needs to be across the board immigration reform, across the board election reform.
Right.
I don't know how you guys feel about healthcare. We're always trying to reform that. At least there's an effort there. So eventually we'll break the egg the right way, and maybe we'll get something workable. I don't know. Anything else that we just really just need to wipe the slate clean with? I figured there's maybe a little bit of entitlement programs for the state workers, of course, need to be, but those are already locked in, as they say.
Well, a lot of the entitlement programs need to be revamped from the ground up, but that'll never happen.
Well, there's all kinds of stuff that's recalcitrant to change and
Who knows?
getting better.
Maybe one election per. There's like a one cause per presidential election almost. Trump has his economy and he's trying to push his immigration agenda.
I think the immigration's at the top of his list.
Yeah,
Because-
Obama had Obamacare. He got to push across a national health care reform.
Right.
So every president seems to get at least one big accomplishment or policy promise moved forward. Whether or not it's effective is a different story. I don't know. Trump's is immigration. That's what he wants it to be. But Democrats have thus far blocked his one big attempt at some substantive change across the board.
What did they block?
Well, the wall, of course. The wall is his big move.
So far, they blocked.
So far, that's right. But he wants that wall. And to be honest, we're always blaming the Democrats, perhaps, for this caravan. But doesn't this work in Trump's favor and the Republicans' favor if they want that wall to kind of create an existential
It
threat?
possibly could.
I'm
sure.
just saying it works both ways. You can analyze it and say, why can't Trump be behind this caravan to try to create a perceived threat? We don't know. We really don't know. You think Soros, or you said Soros. I know I don't even know Soros. Everyone, I swear, everything on every
even
conspiracy
know
theory on
Soros
YouTube
either. Yeah.
ends up with George Soros. I don't even know this man.
You know, speaking of human resources, 67% of human resources professionals surveyed say their companies are impacted by opioid use today or will be in the future. And 64% say they are unprepared to handle opioid addiction, according to survey results released yesterday by the Hartford Financial Services Group. Who wants the next news story?
But before we move on to that one,
Oh, I knew it. Go ahead. What do you want to talk about? Go ahead.
No. It's just a funny aside to me. To me, it is. When I was at the board today, and they have the flyers for the seminars, the MCLE seminars. One of the subjects, and it's Frank Christine, Judge Pollock, and I can't recall who the other two speakers are going to be.
It should be Steve Appel, but please continue. Go ahead. Go on. You wanted to talk about it. Go ahead.
I had to laugh.
Yeah.
For one of the speakers, is going to talk about how alcohol abuse, drug abuse, substance abuse, opiate abuse is a bad idea if you're a practicing attorney. They're actually going to have a segment on that. And it's like, we really need to talk about that
This is another don't do drugs, kids type of moment.
So basically they're saying if you're an attorney, you shouldn't do drugs or alcohol.
Well,
is that what it is?
Yeah, well, not while you're with a client or while you're practicing, but the impression I get is evidently somebody must be either showing up at the office stoned or drunk out of their mind, or showing up in court the same way. Because if you have to have a discussion on that in a seminar where you're earning credits, that's a bad sign.
Well, there's substance abuse classes previously for MCLE credit all the time, right, Robert?
But this is specifically talking about attorneys that are abused.
I've never taken one. I got to be
they're out
honest.
there.
I think so. Do you need somebody to tell you not to show up to court high? I just don't know. Aren't you the one giving advice? You're the lawyer.
In all seriousness, substance abuse, both drugs and alcohols, affects professionals as well as blue-collar
Sure.
people.
Right.
And anybody who realizes they have a problem, all they have to do is ask for help. And there are plenty of people out there that are willing to help. I've said on this show many times, I am not shy. I drink alcohol. Now the question is,
So do I.
do I drink too much where it interferes with my responsibilities to properly run my business and pay my bills? And this is why I have my right-hand man who keeps, and I misstate this all the time, who keeps me out of trouble and in check at least 90% of the time. I have given him free rein since he has been working for me for the past 4 years at any time for any reason to say, Steve, you're effing up. Now, since
for the record, we have gotten into it royally about 10 times.
I don't remember any of those times.
You must have been drinking.
I was going to say we've gotten into it more than 10 times, but I don't recall about it being my drinking. I recall about it being, Steve, you're not following what I'm saying. I was like, Mike, yes, I am. So
listening to the advice of Jack and Daniels right there.
Yeah, exactly. Who's got the next news story?
A former executive at Insys Therapeutics is expected to plead guilty on Wednesday to charges that he participated in a scheme to bribe doctors to prescribe the company's opioid drug. Alex Berlakoff, who was the Chandler, Arizona-based drug maker's former vice president of sales, is expected to appear in federal court in Boston after being previously charged with engaging in a racketeering scheme with others at Insys. His co-defendants have included 6 other former Insys executives and managers, including the company's billionaire founder, John Kapoor. They have pleaded not guilty to racketeering conspiracy and are set to go to trial in January.
And Ted, since you just admitted that you drink like me, why don't you read the next news story?
About 16 million people in the United States have alcohol use disorder, which in the National Institutes of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism defined as compulsive alcohol use, loss of control over alcohol intake, and a negative emotional state when not using. For those experiencing the most serious symptoms of withdrawal, the shaking, shivering, sweating, and confusion of delirium tremens.
Probably tremors. Go
Tremors,
ahead. Go
okay.
ahead.
Delirium tremens, DTs.
Or the DTs. The death rate has been estimated as high as 4% or 1 in 25. Of patients admitted to one hospital in Spain with alcohol withdrawal syndrome from 1987 to 2003, a research team found 6.6% died.
It's like lethal alcoholism.
Don't do drugs, kids.
Be like Robert and eat M&Ms.
You should limit your sugar as well. I'm only human after all.
Moderation.
That's right. Actually, we were talking about the Jack in the Box that we were talking about fast food.
Oh, you brought it up.
We're talking about fast food, trying not to eat fast food, right?
Thank you for giving me the license. I'm on Facebook last night, and Robert posed at 10:45 p.m.
Right.
I am craving Jack in the Box, but I'm trying, in so many words, I'm trying to eat healthy or be a good boy. Lord help me. So I asked him before the show, did he go to Jack in the Box? Hell yeah, I went to Jack in the Box.
I was working late. My assistant had a sourdough jack for lunch earlier. I was thinking about it all day. I was like, my assistant Hoel, who's listening
and
to
it
this
delivered,
now,
right?
Oh, it was delicious. I felt so bad about the fact that I loved it so much.
What was it again? It was a Jack in the Box what?
It was a sourdough jack, but I ended up getting like the buttermilk jack with sourdough bread, so I kind of made a hybrid of my own. It was so good.
What about the ribeye burger? Have you tried that one?
I haven't. I'll get it next time. I saw it on the menu when I was driving through. You know,
I had 2 of them. You love it.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Actually, and I'm a ribeye guy.
Right, we know that.
I will eat it. I have to say this. You know, I really think Jack in the Box makes a good burger.
They do.
Absolutely.
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
I had a Tommy's burger the other day.
Oh,
we
I can't
talked about
stand Tommy's. Oh my god.
That's where I'm sorry. They drenched it in chili. The bread was all wet and soggy, and you couldn't eat the meat. was fairly okay if you can hold the burger to
Scott
eat it.
says to put the chili on the side, right, Scott?
So I told him I'd give him another chance and put the chili on his side, right, so I could try to eat the burger itself. But there's no point in
Isn't
eating
it
a tub
awfully
of
messy?
It is. It is. I'll never forget when I first moved out here to California, and I was doing my Jamaican job thing. I was working probably 3 jobs at the time, and one was as a security guard, graveyard shift. So the guy says, "Hey, I'm leaving. Well, you want to read you something to eat?" I said, "Well, what's nearby?" "Oh, there's a Tommy's Burger." "Oh, okay, burger. Never heard of it." "Okay, can't go wrong with a burger. Give me a burger."
Yeah.
He comes back, hands it to me, takes off. I bite into it. Mouthful of that crap. I said, "What the hell is this?"
What was it? Sauce?
It was the chili on the
chili.
burger. I
It's a
mean,
chili
I'm
burger.
a Southern boy. We don't put chili on a hamburger. We don't do that.
Really?
No.
But
no.
a burger needs to have
No, we
good
don't do
bread.
that.
Half of a burger is the bread.
Yes.
You want to have nice bread that's toasted, kind of firm.
Right.
Got a good, but at the same time you bite into it, it's kind of soft and warm. Everything's a package. It's like sushi with the rice, right? Even if you have good fish, you have bad rice, it's bad sushi.
Hey, and let's face it, you can't beat a good soft warm bun.
You can't. You cannot do it.
You just can't.
You know what I mean? And it's just to just drown it in chili just kind of makes you feel like, am I supposed to eat this with like a fork and knife off of or a
Right.
spoon or something
Right.
like
Having
that?
it on the side would seem a reasonable compromise.
We'll
there.
try it out. And everyone's got their favorite burgers, and it's hard to have a burger conversation about Los Angeles, not mention In-N-Out, right? That's
Yeah.
the big player.
In-N-Out is always fresh.
What
and-
about the Habit?
The Habit's really good.
Habit's awesome.
The Habit's
Oh,
good,
it's
and then there's
awesome.
and, now
And they're known
recent-
for their bread.
And the new player is a Hook Burger. I'm not a real big fan of the Five Guys.
Five Guys I had, which is okay.
I'm
The
not-
Five Guys
meat
just
is
came
good
out
there.
in the past year. They used
Yeah.
to be back in the Midwest or,
Right.
in the East Coast.
I had one in
They
San
just came
Diego,
out.
but yeah.
Okay.
But they're all right. I'm not that
I
impressed.
think
by
there's
them.
one in Woodland Hills.
Everybody
I
has
think.
got their burger. I know everybody listening right now is thinking, well, I like this place. You guys didn't mention that. The Habit is good, In-N-Out is good, and Jack in the Box for fast food. I got.
yeah.
I'll admit
Oh,
it.
yeah.
You got to admit. I don't say the same about McDonald's or Burger King or
no.
those other places, but Jack in the Box has got a better quality. Good for them.
You do. Hey.
You know, guys,
Give it to the
congrats to
clown.
NASA. We should say that.
Oh yeah. There's also robots in space, not just burgers here on Earth.
I mean, the Mars thing is incredible.
What I want to know, and please, Robert, because I know you know about this, correct me if I'm wrong. They say that the NASA probe Insight traveled 301 million miles to get to Mars. But isn't Mars only about 60 million miles from Earth?
I don't know. It's been a while since I took that trip.
Oh, okay.
So,
All right. Okay.
But
okay.
the distance, my understanding is because it's in space, there's no friction, so it's constant acceleration. So you can reach a speed very fast. I mean,
no, I'm
remember,
talking
there's
about
no
the
slowdown.
distance. I'm
He's
talking
talking
about
about
the
the
distance.
distance.
Correct, but I think that maybe the distance is. We can look on our phone. We can check the distance to Mars.
Well,
but
it changes
we can
because
cover
the
distance quickly.
non-synchronous orbit.
Well, yes,
I'm
but
thinking-
you can time it.
I'm thinking
Exactly.
that, well, whatever. I'm just raising that question. Does anybody have the next news story, or should I read it?
Go ahead.
I guess I should read it. Okay, let's see if we find something.
I just looked it up. It's 54.6 million
Well, I
kilometers.
told Oh, well, that's
That's
probably
400 million. Well,
no. A kilometer is.
it depends when. So Mike is right. It depends on the orbit. It could be as far as 400 million kilometers and as little as 54 million kilometers. It's quite the disparity.
Non-synchronous orbits.
Yeah.
That is right.
All
So they
right.
probably tried to finish I would guess, the most efficient route.
We spoke last week on Work Comp Matters about the romaine lettuce scare. Lettuce is king in California's Central Coast, where row crops and produce line the roadways in a region that boasts of being the salad bowl of the world. So it struck deep when federal authorities this week linked a rash of severe bacterial infections to romaine lettuce from California's Central Coast. Now farmers who adopted a host of safety measures after local spinach was tied to a deadly 2006 outbreak fear another battle to win back consumers. You know what? I wrote that news story. That's got to be one of the worst stories I've ever written. So let me just ad-lib it here. What the news says is they have found out that the romaine lettuce scare came from Central California. Therefore, all romaine lettuce and possibly all lettuce in the future is going to identify where it's from and or it's not from Central California.
Don't these guys lose their shirts in a situation like this? I mean, there can't be insurance for this kind of thing, can there be?
I don't know, Robert.
Well,
what type of insurance are you talking about specifically?
Agricultural insurance?
Business interruption insurance.
Something like that.
Depending what the issue is. If it's for the injury and death related to the tainted...
it's for not having product to sell.
Well, if they have no product to sell, there could be business interruption insurance. Steve is right. It depends if you have such insurance. I'm not sure that these farmers would have that insurance, boss. I think they'd have to try to turn around and look to the state of California to bail them out.
But we're not talking about farmers. We're talking about corporations.
Right.
Well, corporations oftentimes will simply have a collective of farmers that work for them. It's not necessarily like this corporation owns all this farmland. They do not. They have exclusive contracts with certain farmers at prices to control the land.
Contractors with farmers, yes.
Correct.
That's correct.
So, and remember, they can also use their contacts to give those same farmers product to plant at a lower cost. There's a huge industry here, of course. We can't just talk about it in one show.
I got to think it's the farmers that are hurt really most here. I mean, other than the victims of the disease.
Well, you would think, though, like you were saying, if there was a collective of farmers that's run by a corporation, it would be in the corporation's best interest to make sure that the farmers and their produce are insured.
Yeah, or at least survive.
Or that the corporation is served. They might not give a rat's ass about the farmers and their workers.
You would hope that at least the contract between the corporation who's going to distribute the food and the farmer would have some provision in case the farmer, let's say, needs assurances that they would buy from him in the future.
Often, it happens fairly often. This is like, millions and millions of heads of this type of lettuce. And hundreds of millions of dollars are just flushed down the toilet. These guys have got to be hurt really bad on this. I'm talking about the local farmer guys.
Yeah.
And the corporations, too.
Well, the corporations will find different farmers.
And
it's not only that. What about the markets they sold it to and the markets sold to consumers?
But see, I think those will all recover. The corporation who sells the lettuce will recover. They'll get other farmers from other parts of the country. Who's really going to suffer is that landowner. They're not going to be able... You're hoping, if you're the landowner who has a contract to distribute lettuce, that contract will not be voided for some sort of major breach because of this issue, right? It's basically like an athlete's contract where you're hoping that because it's guaranteed money, you keep it coming even if I get hurt, let's say, racing my motorcycle down the street at my house, right?
Good conduct clause.
That's what I'm saying. There's always something. So you're hoping that they plan for a rainy day.
And I couldn't have said it better myself, my boy. From Insight, NASA landing on Mars, Nancy Pelosi nominated as a Speaker of the House, FEMA trailers, General Motors, Los Angeles County nurses, genetically altered babies, chaos at the border, impact of opioid addiction and United States workforces, Insys Therapeutics, alcohol use, methamphetamines, and, of course, tainted lettuce. You heard it all here first at WorkCom Matters. My name is Steve Appel. It's been another wonderful, great show. From my right-hand man, keeping me in check and out of trouble at least 90% of the time, Dr. Michael Zyma. For Mr. Ted Durden, the best-dressed man in Southern California, attorney, and my protege, Robert Ozeron. From Uncle's studio, Scott Walton on the board, taking care of all the technical difficulties. Back in Munich, Germany, attorney John Scalia. And all the good people back at WorkComp Central, including, but not limited to, Mr. Leaf File. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of WorkComp Matters.